Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday Thoughts, another Tuesday night, 7 o'clock, to share some thoughts and ideas around well-being, psychological well-being, and all things that matter to us functioning well as human beings. So it's 7 o'clock. I'm just waiting for my sound engineer to give me the thumbs up. And then once the thumbs are up, it'll be time to continue with our session. Today, so for those of you who are either watching live or catch up, this is a session, hints and tips. Thank you, sound engineer. Yeah, just hints and tips of dealing with life's difficulties, but it's no substitute for going to see your doctor, psychologist, a counselor, psychotherapist, where you need to get that professional insight and that time. Really important. Good evening, Sonia. And if you're watching on catch up during the week or even weeks or months later, welcome to take the time and don't rush off yet. We've got some interesting stuff to share with you this evening. So just for anyone who's starting, my name is Delroy Hall, a trained counsellor. And one of the things I do have is a digital CV. So you go about 3 years on Facebook and certainly a little while ago on Twitter and LinkedIn and on YouTube, and you'll see me. Oh, good evening, Carol. Really good to see you this evening. So, yeah, just to fill it for those who may be started, I started this 12th of April, 2020 during the first lockdown, and I'm still going. I didn't think I'd be doing it this long, but here I'm still doing it. Okay, just for your diaries, Saturday the 11th of November, I'm doing a workshop on betrayal, its impact and recovery, betrayal in childhood, and then its effect on our developing life, and then effects in adulthood, and then how we deal with it. That's a workshop, Saturday the 11th November. It's going to be in Walsall. I've got somebody working on a flyer. As soon as it's done, it'll be out there, and you'll get all the details that you need. All right, thank you, Lindsay. Yes, Tuesday Thoughts. I'll just say a big shout out to Lindsay. It was Lindsay who gave the name for Tuesday Thoughts. So maybe towards the end I might do another shout out. There's something separate I want to do. Looking for maybe 20 women, maybe 20 men. If you know of anybody who they may find it helpful, if you email me. Oh, hang on, let me just put this out here. Yeah, if you email me or DM me on Messenger, some people have done, you'll get the information that's needed. Now, I want to, those of you that have been looking or watching over the last, no, it's going to be, unfortunately, it's going to be in person. Yes, it's going to be in person, Lindsay. However, it's a trial run. It's going to be in person, but if it's something that people want to do online, if there's enough numbers, I can certainly do it online. So watch this space. Certainly watch this space. So, those of you who've been following me over the last couple of months, I've been looking at this thing called betrayal. Kind of ended it, but then it kind of morphed into something else, which I think is really important. One of the things that I've seen throughout my work as a counselor, not just in young people, but also in adults as well, when individuals are not able to move past, go past relationships, they are stuck. I've worked with it quite a lot with teenagers, and then now that I'm older and working with older women and older men who possibly would want a relationship, but they're stuck on things that have happened to them, and they can't get past it. Now, I'm not one to believe that you have to be in a relationship to enjoy life. I don't believe that at all. You can be on your own and really be enjoying life, but there are many individuals, male and female, who would want to be in a relationship, but they're so fearful, not wanting to be hurt again. And some individuals, if they go into a relationship, they take the past unresolved hurt into the next one, and they can't settle, and causes lots of difficulties. So over the next few weeks, I'm going to look at this. However, I do want to put something online, maybe for 5 to 6 weeks, to help us to get started. This is outside of this. These will be longer sessions. These sessions are just for about 15-20 minutes, but I'll be wanting to maybe work with individuals for 60 minutes, maybe not more than 90 minutes, to work at this thing about people being stuck. I met somebody quite some time ago who very clearly, I guess, wants to be in a relationship, but so fearful of starting a new relationship. And when the person goes into a relationship, everything that comes back, and it prevents a person from really enjoying the relationship that they're in, and they end it really, really quickly. But there is a way around it, but it doesn't happen just like that. So this whole thing around a betrayal, betrayal, and the kind of the spin-off from that, as I've seen. Now, there's something that I've asked lots of people to do. I know one person who's done it, but individuals who've come to me and said, look, Delroy, I've had 7 or 8 relationships, all end up the same way. One of the things I've said to lots of individuals, and I'm not even too sure that they do it, whether in counseling or not, but I know one person who did. I said, look, how many relationships have you had? Okay, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I said, look, get a sheet of paper, write the names on the top of each paper, and look at the relationships. How did you meet? How was the relationship? And as you go through each one, look at some patterns, see some trends, because quite often when you're in it and you can't see the wood for the trees. The only thing you say is, oh, look, it's happened again. And I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and this friend of mine, let me tell you, he's not short of women making a pass at him. Everywhere he goes, women like him. He's tall, he's handsome, he's very fit, as in athletically fit. Everywhere he goes, there's women who really literally knocking on his door. No, it's not me. I'm not talking about myself. I've never had that. Never ever had that. And he said to me one day, this was quite some time ago. We were talking about relationships, and he said, it was quite some time ago. He said, Delroy, I was looking at my relationships, and I was always ending up with the same results. So what he did, he intentionally went for somebody who he wouldn't normally go for. And in fact, even individuals said to him, why have you gone with her? And when he's explained things to her, and now they're married and have been for quite a few years. So sometimes it's often about being aware of the patterns, the destructive patterns that you continue to do, and you're just not aware of them. And you can knock the men, and I hear women say, look, there's no good men out there. There is. And I hear guys say, there's no good women out there. They're all this, they're all that. No, there's good men and good women. The common denominator quite often is you. This is not about blame, because what happens sometimes, we get into a situation, oh, it's happened again, and then you start going down this dark hole. You beat yourself up, you become really negative. And quite often, it's not about beating yourself up. It's actually looking at what you're doing. I've said to individuals, I say, listen, when you begin to look at yourself differently, you'll start attracting a different type of person. And if you see somebody coming who's danger, you know it straight off. Now, you hear this story quite often about girls only like these kind of bad boys. Listen to me clearly. Bad boys are brilliant because they've got the charm, they've got the words, they've got the lyrics, they've got the looks, but it's only short-lived. Those bad boys quite end up being toxic people. But you got caught in, you were drawn in by the charisma, you were drawn in by the charm and the words and the swagger and how they were. You got drawn into it, and then you realize, what, not just bad boy, this guy really is bad. And it happens with men and women as well. They get drawn in. So this whole thing about bad boy, I've heard it so often. Women don't want good men. Listen, one of the things, Andrew Huberman, neuroscientist, check him out on YouTube, and Coach Melanie, when they've done lots of research, one of the things that, if we're talking about male-female relationships, one of the things that women really want in men is kindness. And I suspect it's something similar for men as well. So this whole thing about bad boys, not necessarily what people are after. So paper exercise, if you've been in several relationships and you see the same pattern again and you can't understand what's going on, by all means, invest in yourself, see a therapist or psychologist to look at some of the patterns. Once you see the patterns and you become aware of the patterns, you can do something about it. Or paper exercise. Went out with Jim, Tony, John, David, you name them all, or I went out with Mary, Sue, and I suspect The same thing happens as well for same-sex relationships. That you're in a situation whereby you're attracting the same type of individual, and disaster along the way. I recall being at a funeral a few years ago, and the minister preached an astounding sermon on self-love. And I remember talking to quite a lot of the women afterwards, and they said, you know, Delroy, when we've reflected on our lives, some of the guys we were attracted to, we did blame the guys, but you know what? The issue was really with us. We really didn't value ourselves as much as we should have done. And so sometimes it's to do with us, not about blaming or beating yourself up, but actually moving forward. So one of the things, one of the first things, and you hear me say this often, is this whole thing about when we have these difficult emotions, something's happened to us and we kind of internalize it. What we need to do is to find a safe space and sit with those difficult and pleasant emotions. And if you can't do it on your own, find somebody, pay somebody, invest in yourself, that you're with somebody who can walk you through what took place in this relationship. What were the red flags that you missed or you saw, but you still went ahead anyway? And it's about sitting with these emotions. And one of the things that we need to learn to do when we sit with these emotions, these unpleasant emotions, learn to develop self-compassion, because we can be really hard on ourselves, especially when things go wrong. Please, if anybody wants to make a comment, ask a question, please feel free to do so. Or if you don't want to do it as we're live, please feel to email me. I got a lovely message from an old school friend last week, who was watching the whole thing around Betrayed, and for over 10 years still hasn't dated anybody since the ending of her very abusive relationship with her husband. And she recognized what had happened. She'd buried the feelings, so she wasn't able to move and develop with her life, but she's getting the support now that she needs, and hopefully moving on with her life. And even if she doesn't want to be in another relationship, at least she's free of what's happened in the past. So for 10 years, she put her life on hold, didn't deal with the unpleasant emotions, but she's beginning to work with it now. So I'm really, really pleased for her. So develop self-compassion. So how do we do that? So the starting point of all healing or recovery and so forth is this whole thing about acknowledge our emotions, burying them cause problems, and we learn how to sit with them. Now, so how do we do that? Okay, well, here's a couple of things. How would you treat a young child that's hurt? A young child that's hurt themselves or in pain. One of the things you do with a child, a loving parent would find out what's wrong and try to soothe them. And I would certainly say that one of the things that we need to do quite often, it certainly once we kind of catch ourselves, is start to soothe ourselves, be kind to ourselves. It's really, really important that we do that. So that's if it's a young child. If you're a young child, and maybe if there's any men watching, they say, well, that's kind of babyish stuff. No, well, okay, then if that's kind of babyish stuff, let me go a bit further. How would you treat a friend? And this is an exercise I'd like you to do. Maybe not now. I'd like you to do. This is something when I'm in a counseling session with somebody of an hour, I actually get clients to do the exercise in front of me. So it's a kind of live thing that's actually happening. So what I say to them, imagine a friend, somebody you know, your closest friend, who's really upset or they're going through a really bad time. What's the name of that friend? So they write down the name. And then I say, well, how would you respond to that person? And write it. There's something about writing down and seeing it that really helps us to kind of see what it is and helps us to kind of move forward. Just as an aside, but something really important. I remember some time ago, quite some time ago now, being stressed out with quite a few things. And if you ever get to know me, I'm not a worrier, but these things really got a hold of me, and I don't know why, but I was really getting stressed out with them. And I remember having a conversation with myself, thinking, well, Delroy, if you were in the counseling, what would you be saying to a client? I'd be saying to a client, look, these things that are bothering you, write them down on the paper, get them out of your head and write them on the paper. And then I said, what have you discovered when you write them down? when you get them out of your head and on paper, it's nowhere near as bad as it feels when it's inside your head. And I remember doing this exercise and I looked at these things. I thought, what are you worried about? I can deal with that. Can't do anything about this. That's easy. Get that one sorted. It was done. Once it was out of my head on the paper, it really, in a sense, you were able to put some distance and perspective. So you imagine your friend going through a really rough time in a dark place, in a bad place. How would you respond to them? How would you typically respond to them? So write it down. You write down the things that you'll do. That's one. Question number two is, when you felt bad or in a bad place, how do you treat yourself? Write it down. What do you think? What do you feel? What images do you have? How do you beat yourself? You write it down. And then the question is asked, do you see the difference between how you treat your friend and how you treat yourself? And the question then we need to ask is, if there is a difference, and there usually is, where has that come from? What factors have contributed to you treating your friend really good, typically really good, and you treating yourself so bad? And the final question is, how might things change if you treated yourself like you treated your friend? It makes a whole heap of difference. As a friend of mine, I recall quite a few years ago now, I was on the way to see a friend. Oh, good evening, Dawn. Oh, yes, good evening to see you. Normally in the classroom, but you're here this evening, so thank you very much. And for Jenny as well being with us, and anyone else, if you've logged on a bit late, really good to see you this evening. I was going to see a friend in London. We were doing our studies together. She'd had ovarian cancer, and she's doing really well, and then cancer came back, and the doctor said to her, look, you've got two options. You may have 2 years with chemotherapy, 1 year without. And she contacted me, said, look, can we meet to talk? Not that she wanted me to tell her what to do, but she wanted to talk to somebody objective. On the way to London, I stopped in at Leicester. My old Sunday school teacher had died. It was his funeral. So I stopped off at Leicester, attended the funeral, then went on to London. So I met a friend, this person who got the cancer. And then later on, I met another friend. And when I told her what had happened, she treated me to lunch. She said, look, you've had a tough day. And I'm still in contact with this friend. And I've had to remind her that when she's going through a difficult time, she doesn't always treat herself well. And recently she said to me, you'll be really pleased, Delroy. She said, I actually asked for help. She's somebody who's incredibly independent. I suspect a feminist, but incredibly independent. But things have really gotten to her. She said to me recently, you'll be really pleased to know I actually asked for help. But I've said to her often, the way that you treated me that day and the way you treat other people, it would be good if you had some of that TLC yourself. And for maybe some of us watching live or watching in the future, how would life be for you if you treated yourself the way that you treated a close friend when they have difficulties? I suspect you treat yourself a lot better, and some of the hang-ups that has really kind of gripped you and imprisoned you, you won't have them because you treated yourself, you cultivated self-compassion. Something has happened, you've dealt with yourself kindly, and you've been able to move on, you've been able to recover, put it behind you, learn from it, know what to watch out for, so that the next time you meet somebody, male or female, whoever it might be, that you know what some of the signs are. You don't commit so early. So you're going to the relationship, be a lot, not even guarded, but you're aware, you're more aware. Guarded could be you can be in the relationship, but you're not enjoying it, but you're more guarded, you're not guarded, but you're more aware. And in a sense, your antennae is there waiting. You see any red flags, you're not going to mess around, you're off. So cultivating self-compassion. Also, again, practicing mindfulness. One of the things that sometimes we don't do very well, going back to the first thing really, we don't sit long enough with our uncomfortable feelings. Now, we are talking about moving beyond being stuck. But anything that happens, sometimes we don't sit with the unpleasant emotions long enough. Those of us that do, or you've learned to do it, one of the things you know is this: unpleasant emotions don't last forever. They do if you bury them, but if you sit with them, if you acknowledge them, if you face them, embrace them, and say, I am feeling this right now, or what am I feeling right now? What are the emotions I'm feeling? And name them. In a sense, you're not allowing these emotions to keep you a prisoner. And being able to deal with it, face with it, and embrace it, whatever word you want to use, helps you to move on with your life, to mature, to grow, and to recover. Really important stuff. So in terms of the first stages, getting past stuck, it's about acknowledging what happened, but also taking note of the emotions of your feeling, not beating yourself up, not sweeping it under the carpet, but acknowledging it painfully, even with tears. Tears do not last forever, but believe you me, if you're able to deal with those emotions, it goes a long way. And I think the final thing I would just say, just to repeat myself, how would you treat a friend? Yeah, do it as a paper exercise. Don't do it in your head. Maybe another way is to maybe converse with somebody who you trust. If you found this thing really helpful, to cultivate self-compassion, you either have a conversation with somebody, so there's this kind of dialogue. So questions are, imagine you've got a close friend who's going through a really bad time. How do you typically treat them when they're going through a bad time? Second, when you're going through a bad time, going that dark hole, how do you typically treat yourself? Question number 3 is, what do you notice between question number 1 and question number 2? There's a difference. And then you ask yourself the question, what factors or fears have brought around this difference of treating a good friend really well and treating yourself not so? And then finally, thinking it through, if I treated myself the way that I treated a best friend, how might life be different for me? I'll tell you how it would be different in one way. You wouldn't get stuck. One of the things about being stuck is simply this: the mind knows the pain and it prevents us from moving forward. But if we're able to acknowledge that pain and take the necessary steps, whatever's caused the injury or pain, we leave behind. Not always easy. And I was literally talking to somebody a few days ago. Some may know, over the last few years, that I've had to make some serious decisions about my life. And somebody said, I think it was 2 or 3 days ago, well, it's almost as though you had to counsel yourself. I did. I remember, you know what happens sometimes? We really know the decisions to make, but we keep putting it off. Deep down, intuitively, we know what decisions to make about our lives, about our jobs, about careers, where we live. Oh, we really do know. But what we do, we'll get distracted and we don't listen to the inner voice and we do anything else. But what happens quite often, we come back round to the thing, what we need to do. And I said to her, yeah, I did. I imagined myself being in the counseling room. I was sitting in the client's chair and I was a counselor, asking myself the questions. And I was fobbing the counselor off. I was fobbing me off and saying to myself, Delroy, come on. You know you need to make this decision. You know what the right thing is to do for your life. Stop messing about. So I literally had to talk to myself, ask some really critical questions about my life, even to the point where I asked the question and I responded again by saying, Delroy, you know that ain't you. Delroy, you know that's not true. You know that's not true. So here we go from Dawn. Procrastination about life decisions can be a real issue, as often we don't want to deal with the fallout of necessary. Absolutely, Dawn. And quite often the fallout is, what will people say? Or sometimes it's, what are we going to lose? What will people say? And what will they do? And I'll lose all my friends. Yeah, so we have all this stuff going on in our heads. And sometimes it does happen. We do lose friends. We do lose status. We do lose kudos. But what we gain freedom. We gain peace with being ourselves and living authentically, and not drumming or not dancing and to other people's tunes. I'm not saying it's easy. Even the thing that I'm talking about, there's some friends who I know are kind of just getting to know a little bit, and I can see there's real resistance in terms of moving on. And obviously, the longer that it goes on, the more difficult and painful it is. But you can do it. You can do it. And if you know people who you can trust, who can help you through it, or invest in yourself, see a counselor who can really help you. You won't need loads of sessions. Once you've kind of got a mind made up to do certain things, you know, they can really help you, point you in the right direction. Here's a question from Jenny. Do you think lack of self-care is duty to learned behavior? Do you think lack of self-care is duty to learned behavior due to lack of support? Yeah, the belief that nobody cares. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yes. All right, sorry. Do you think lack of self-care is due to learned behavior due to lack of support? Absolutely. That's the whole thing around betrayal. Quite often, certainly with children who are betrayed by caregivers, parents, the narrative that's produced in their heads, and they grow up with it. They didn't care, so why should I? And then what happens, they have this kind of narrative in their head, and it's almost they live it out. So they get into not necessarily romantic relationships, but they get into relationships, friendships with people, and then there's something that can actually happen, and they say, well, actually, you know what? They don't care about me, so why should I? But you're right. It's learned behavior, and some of the learned behavior was a form of survival strategies. But quite often when I see them in adulthood, partly is that the survival strategies are no longer working, and things have imploded, and now they have to look at themselves. And counseling can be really difficult because we don't want to look at ourselves, we don't want to confront ourselves. But actually, if we do and stay with the process, the growth that comes is immeasurable. And you'll be saying to yourself, why on earth did I not do that before? But yeah, those the comments, Dawn, is really interesting about life decisions. It is a real issue. It really, really is. And the longer you put off that decision, the harder it is to make that decision. But it really needs courage. There will be fallout, bound to be. But actually, if you then a place where you're free, it's brilliant. I think part of my sadness, if I'm going to be honest with you, is when you work with individuals. In fact, not just only my sadness, many other therapists' sadness, but there's a book called The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. And he said part of his sadness as a therapist, The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. Part of his sadness was that people would go along in therapy until they realized they had to change, and the potential fallout with relationships, and they stopped because it was seen to be too much for them to take on. And I've known that myself, that people get to the place whereby they know they have to make the necessary change, and they don't for a whole range of reasons. Stop therapy, or therapy grinds to a halt, and then you just got to, sometimes, it's not happen often, you have to terminate counseling because they're not prepared to move forward. And in other instances, you have to sit with people and wait with people until they're ready. And knowing that, I can't give you a straight answer. Sometimes you just have to stay with people. Sometimes you stay with them for weeks and months. They come week in and they'll pay you and all the rest of it, but you have to stay with them until they're ready to make that decision to make the decision about their lives, to begin this whole thing about self-compassion, self-care, begin to take themselves seriously. And it's never done in a way, to hell with everybody else, but actually, how am I going to look after myself? How am I going to get through this? How am I going to survive? Hey, thank you for those two comments. If there's no other questions, we're going to be continuing this next week. I'll please keep your eyes open for the flyer for the betrayal workshop. That's going to be in person. However, if there's enough interest, I'm more than happy to do something online. After next month, we're kind of heading towards Christmas, so some of the stuff might be in the new year. But you know what? Betrayal, this whole thing about being stuck, will always be relevant, because sometimes we have these experiences that actually either imprison us. But if we have the right people around us, if we have the right tools, and if we can shift our perspectives, they can be experiences that can cause us to grow, to develop, to mature, and so forth. So brilliant. So if there's no other comments or questions, thank you much for joining live. Right. LinkedIn user, thank you, brother. Very insightful. I don't know who it is, but hey, listen, thank you for taking the time to pop in. So we're going to continue moving beyond being stuck from past relationship. It really is a killer for lots of people. And thank you for Lindsay for Tuesday Thoughts. I'll see you again next week, Tuesday Thoughts, 7 o'clock. Listen, if you find this helpful, or you think other people might find it helpful, please share with people, male and female. It's not just women who get stuck in relationships, men do as well. Have major problems in moving on, but we can move on, but there's some stuff we need to work through. Right, enjoy the rest of your evening. Summer might have gone, I'm not too sure, but certainly gone over the last couple of days. But anyway, whatever happens, rain or shine, yes, thank you, Carol. Yeah, thank you, Richard and Sonia. Yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of your week. Oh my goodness me, Helen. Yes. Yes, yeah. Take care of yourself, and we'll see each other. Next week, all being well. And not unless you want to email me or DM me. More than happy to receive anything from you. Go well, take care, and all the best. Bye bye.